Would you want to see this on your drive home from work? Neither would most people. NIMBYism plays a major role in the opposition for wind power. NIMBY stands for Not in My Backyard. Wind turbines and wind farms are considered to be unaesthetically pleasing.
One concern is intermittency. The wind doesn't blow all the time, and we still haven't got great ways of storing the power produced. That means we still need other forms of generation as well.
Wind power is extremely weather dependent. It can only provide electricity when the weather cooperates. So on sunny days or days with no wind power will be unable to provide constant, predictable power to the electrical grid. Currently, the electricity grid is designed to send a constant AC load to consumers, so we can have easy 24-hour, 7 days a week access to TV and electricity. However, our current electrical grid relies on large power plants producing predictable and steady electricity. Wind is not steady, and without some kind of technology to store large amounts of energy for days when the wind is not blowing, wind power will continue to have little environmental value.
And subsidy is an issue. There's debate across Europe about how much governments should support technologies that the market finds expensive. How expensive? Estimates come in at about £3 billion per gigawatt. Not cheap by any standards.
Offshore wind is vastly more expensive than any other energy source according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The average cost for an offshore wind system entering the commercial service in 2016 would be $243 per megawatt hour. Supporters of offshore wind argue that the high startup costs are balanced out because wind turbines require very little maintenance. However, we all know what happens when metal sits in salt water. Salt water is extremely corrosive, requiring more maintenance, which will be more expensive. Wind power will prove itself to be not economically feasible without federal subsidies.
For those of you that are going to have to pay for this, currently in year 2013, per kilowatt of energy produced by Cape Wind, those of you on the Cape that are going to have to use this, you're going to pay 20.9 cents for it. Currently, you're paying 9 cents for non-wind farm kilowatts. Yeah, so it's more than doubled, but the beauty of it is, every year after that, the rate goes up by 3.5%, such that when this deal is done, you'll be paying 35 cents a kilowatt for wind energy, when currently you're paying 9 cents a kilowatt for non-wind energy. So in other words, they lied to us on how much it was going to cost to build it, and they've lied to us on how much it's going to cost when we get it.
From an environmentalist perspective, another major threat of wind turbines is avian mortality and other negative effects that wind turbines have on wildlife. The expected death rate of birds in an offshore wind farm is 1 to 10 per megawatt hour. Birds collide with the turbines, and there is also evidence of birds being forced to the ground by turbulence created by the moving rotors. There is also likely to be significant impacts on local fisheries and other marine mammals during construction. The claim that wind power will create jobs is misleading. EDF, a renewable energy company, claims that wind farms create jobs and revitalize struggling communities. However, the fact is that after a few months of construction, a typical large wind facility will only require one worker for maintenance, because the turbines require little maintenance after construction. Much of that construction is also handled by imported labor from the turbine company. The price of renewable energy is falling, while the cost of producing fossil fuels is rising. However, we will not have the energy means to maintain and reproduce renewable energy over the long run, since every aspect of the renewable energy deployment process currently relies on fossil fuels, particularly oil. Wind power is inherently incapable of powering industrial societies as currently configured, without a support infrastructure that runs on fossil fuels. Material requirements of a modern wind turbine include blades made of fiberglass, a skyscraper-sized tower of steel, and a base of concrete. A wind turbine cannot currently be made without the extraction of oil and natural gas, because fiberglass is without exception produced from petrochemicals. One megawatt of wind capacity requires 103 tons of stainless steel, so we would need 50 million more tons of steel per year. The production of steel begins with mining iron ore, which would leave the landscape looking like this. The large, powerful machines that are used to mine iron ore require high-density fuels. For example, diesel. Ironically, these machines are also made of steel. The iron ore then needs to be transported on large bulk carriers. Oil is essential for this transport. The bulk carriers are powered by diesel engines. Each major step in the production chain for primary steel is dependent on fossil fuels. We must then ask the question, can you even make a wind turbine without fossil fuels?
But a little known secret is that wind turbines rely almost entirely on fossil fuels. You cannot manufacture, assemble, or maintain them without coal, oil, and natural gas. Wait a second, wind energy depends on the same energy sources it's supposed to replace? That's right. Turbines are mostly made of steel, which comes from heating iron ore and coke, a form of coal. Turbines that are imported have to be transported on diesel-powered tankers to the United States. Turbine parts are driven to site on 18-wheelers fueled by diesel, and it can take up to 8 trucks to transport a single turbine. And like the engine under the hood of your car, assembled wind turbines require lubricants to keep the parts moving. These lubricants are made from oil. Finally, because wind only generates electricity when the wind blows, it must be backed up with another energy source. In many cases, that energy source is fossil fuels. There you have it. Fossil fuels make everything possible, including the production of energy from the wind. So when lawmakers subsidize wind to hide its costs, and at the same time enact policies that raise the price of fossil fuels, all they are really doing is increasing the price of energy for all of us.